Claire Donovan flagged him the moment he stepped onto the plane. "Sir, you've been marked as a discrepant passenger," she said, her tone rehearsed, eyes on the tablet in her hand as if the screen gave her permission to ignore everything else. "I'll need you to step out and have your bags rescreened." The cabin was quiet at first. Seatbelt clicks, the low thrum of AC overhead, but the tension dropped like a curtain. Dr. Isaiah Grant, 40 years old, founder of Quantum Core Solutions and one of the most influential minds in artificial intelligence, stood still in the aisle of Horizon Star Airlines' Boeing 787. His tailored Navy suit held no wrinkles, and his posture, upright, calm, composed, belonged to a man who'd earned his seat in every room he entered. Row 6A was printed clearly on his boarding pass. Yet Claire's request wasn't about luggage or logs. It was about presence. "TSA already cleared my bags," Isaiah replied evenly. "If there's a discrepancy, it's in your system, not mine." Claire took a step closer, as if proximity would validate her judgment. "Sir, I need your cooperation." From the second row, a few heads turned, a murmur from the back. Then, Victor Crane emerged, white, mid-40s, private equity smile, pinstriped arrogance, and strode down the aisle like he owned the air. He stopped in front of Isaiah and narrowed his eyes. "You're in my seat." Isaiah turned slightly. "6A is what my boarding pass says." He gestured. Calm. Victor didn't even glance. He reached out and smacked Isaiah's phone from the tray. It hit the carpet with a sharp clatter, sliding beneath seat 5D. "I said move!" Audible gasps swept through the cabin. Claire didn't blink. She moved toward Isaiah instead. "Sir, please exit the aircraft, now." Isaiah stayed planted. "Unless you can show me a reason why my name doesn't match this seat. I'm not moving." Claire stared at her screen, then looked up. "You're not listed as confirmed." From seat 5C, a composed woman in a slate-gray pantsuit gave a sharp nod. Aisha Patel, legal counsel to Quantum Core and Isaiah's longtime advisor. She spoke with her eyes. "I'm ready." Isaiah tapped his smartwatch. "Nadia, alert Grant Ventures. Begin protocol." In a sunlit office tower across Miami, Nadia Cole's monitors lit up. "Understood. Boss, escalation initiated. Stand by." Claire turned to the rest of the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a slight delay due to a passenger discrepancy." Murmurs swelled. Isaiah lowered himself into 6A and retrieved his phone. The sting of it. It was familiar. In 2010, at just 25, he'd presented a model predicting neural behavior patterns. His white supervisor called it instinct-driven and hard to validate. The data later became Quantum Core's launch product. Victor glanced over. "I have VIP priority. That seat's mine." Isaiah nodded. "Then your reservation should match." Victor grinned, flashing a clearly doctored printout. "It does. Maybe yours is fake." Claire didn't intervene. She let it hang. "Your presence is delaying this flight. We need to move forward." "Then confirm my boarding pass." "You're not in the system, sir," Claire said again. Isaiah tapped his watch. "Nadia, what's the timeline?" "Bid is prepped. Phase 1 live in 90 seconds. From 5C. Aisha leaned forward. "I'm drafting a formal notice. Horizon Star's counsel will receive it directly." Isaiah nodded. "Send it." In row 8, a man in a ball cap adjusted his phone. Javier Morales, travel vlogger, 600K followers, whispered to his live stream. "Y'all are watching this live. Horizon Star flagging a black man in first class. This is not okay." Viewers began pouring in, shares, comments. Then Victor leaned over again. A folded note dropped onto Isaiah's tray. 3 words, handwritten in thick, dark ink. "Leave first class." Isaiah held it up. slow, letting Claire see it. "Is this your policy now?" Claire didn't respond. Aisha's phone buzzed. "Notice sent. Legal timestamp attached. Board counsel notified." Isaiah didn't blink. "Victor," he said quietly, "this isn't the day you think it is." Claire remained firm. "Sir, final warning. I will involve airport security," Isaiah replied. "You should, but not for me." His watch buzzed again. Nadia's update. Target shares in motion. Phase 1 complete. Javier's screen lit up. 15,000 watching. Then 20. "I don't know who this man is," Javier whispered to his viewers, "but I'm about to find out." Isaiah turned to Claire. "You're sinking this airline minute by minute, and every camera in here sees it," Aisha whispered. "NPR just picked up the story. Streams spreading." Victor looked nervous. "You're bluffing." Aisha smiled. "And yet you're sweating." Claire folded her arms. "None of this changes the fact." "That I'm in the right seat?" Isaiah interrupted. "With a valid pass? While you take orders from a man who knocked my phone off a table?" Claire's mouth tightened. Isaiah leaned back. "You can ignore the boarding pass. You can ignore my name. But you can't ignore what's coming." Just then, the cabin lighting shifted. Outside, the evening sun dipped beneath the control tower. But inside, something irreversible had started. A digital tremor, a ripple across news feeds, a name beginning to trend, and a reckoning that would unfold in real time. Before we continue, before Isaiah's watch buzzes again and this cabin holds its breath, let me ask you, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you believe justice doesn't need to shout to be heard, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and help share what happens next. Claire turned sharply on her heel, walking briskly toward the front galley where she tapped her comms panel and summoned Richard Vaughn, the cabin operations chief. "We've got a passenger with unverified status in 6A, she said into the headset, her voice clipped but controlled. "Manifest mismatch. Requesting immediate cabin-level enforcement." She didn't mention the live stream, didn't mention the passengers who had begun filming. Richard appeared moments later. A stocky man in his early 50s with a uniform that looked more ceremonial than functional. He glanced at Claire, then at Isaiah. "This gentleman's ID is being flagged?" Claire nodded. "Discrepant, not matching our logs." Isaiah remained seated, back straight, expression calm but unreadable. From 5C. Aisha closed her tablet, leaned into the aisle. "His boarding pass was scanned and cleared. Are you now overriding TSA?" Richard ignored her. "We'll get this straightened out, ma'am." 2 rows behind, Victor Crane sat forward, his voice raised just enough to be heard. "I don't want to accuse anyone, but I think he took something from my carry-on. My wallet was in there. It's not now." He looked directly at Isaiah. "Maybe someone should check his pockets." The words fell like a slap across the cabin. Passengers turned. Javier Morales, still recording, caught the moment. "Sir, are you accusing him of theft?" Javier asked. "Because this camera's been rolling since you boarded." Victor didn't backpedal. "I'm just saying, if it's missing, and he was the only one near my bag." Claire didn't object. She didn't correct him. Ethan Pierce, the airline's crew systems coordinator, sat near the front, half hidden by a bulkhead, from his discreet console. He accessed the passenger manifest, hovering over Isaiah's entry. A few keystrokes later, he changed the internal status to pending verification, a designation that would disable Isaiah's seat functions. Claire glanced at her device and gave a tight smile. "Cabin compliance alert is active. For safety reasons. Seat 6A is now in lockdown mode. You'll need to remain upright. Sir, do not adjust your seat." Isaiah's armrest controls went dead. His reading light dimmed. He didn't move. "Interesting," he said quietly. First, my name vanishes. Now my seat obeys your bias. Aisha tapped rapidly on her phone. They're tampering with the manifest system, she said. Isaiah, this isn't incompetence. This is sabotage. Isaiah didn't raise his voice. He simply tapped his smartwatch. Nadia, escalate the bid. Already in progress, Nadia replied from Quantum Core's Miami office. Her screen flashed green, volume spikes, institutional buying orders. Isaiah kept his gaze steady on Claire. Do you understand what you're triggering? Claire's only response was to move toward Isaiah's briefcase, which sat beside him in the empty seat 6B. Without asking, she lifted it. This was left unattended. FAA regulations allow us to secure unaccompanied items. Javier's camera didn't miss a frame. You're removing his property from his seat? He asked aloud. It was beside him. Everyone saw that. The stream's viewer count surged past 8,000. In seat 4D, an older woman whispered to her husband. Isn't he the guy from Forbes? Isaiah remained composed. You're setting fire to your own airline, he said softly. And your name is on every matchstick. Claire didn't flinch. She walked the bag to the galley and placed it in a compartment, then returned to her post like nothing had happened. Victor leaned back with a smug grin. You know, I actually feel safer now, Aisha muttered. These people don't realize what they're doing to themselves. A soft chime echoed overhead. Cabin screens, previously displaying flight safety messages, now flickered to live coverage from CNBC. The banner was blunt. Black CEO claims racial profiling on Horizon Star flight. Live stream goes viral. Javier gasped. Oh my God, they picked it up already? His screen confirmed it. Hashtags were trending. Hashtag Horizon Star profiled and hashtag Isaiah Grant. Isaiah finally turned to Victor. This is what you wanted? He asked. This attention? This humiliation? Because it's coming for all of you now? Victor sneered. You're no one. I've built companies that buy people like you. Aisha laughed under her breath. He just said that out loud, she whispered. Perfect. Ethan, from his hidden console, activated a flag meant for internal review, passenger disruption, possible removal, but his hands trembled. The pressure was mounting. Aisha whispered again. They're prepping for police intervention. Get ready. Isaiah nodded once, but his expression didn't change. They're playing checkers, he murmured. We're already in the endgame. Claire stood at the front of the cabin once more. Due to a developing situation, we're consulting with ground authorities to resolve a manifest issue. Thank you for your patience. Javier turned his phone so viewers could see the cabin. You're looking at Horizon Star's first-class section, where a black CEO is being accused, restricted, and publicly targeted, on camera. In 2025, someone in row 7 yelled, Why aren't you asking the white guy anything? He started this! Claire ignored the voice. Richard whispered to her. This is spiraling. Claire didn't look away. Then we bury him now. Before the flight. Isaiah's watch buzzed again. Nadia's voice was direct. Sir, CNBC mentioned the escalation. Shares are shifting faster than we expected. The board is watching, Isaiah replied softly. Good. Let them see it all. Aisha opened a secure folder on her tablet. I've got 3 screenshots of manifest tampering, 2 timestamps, and a violation summary. They can't walk this back. Isaiah smiled for the first time. Then let's give them one more reason to remember this moment. Javier's live stream passed 12,000 viewers. Claire reached for her comms again, but before she could speak, Isaiah leaned slightly into the aisle. You've lied, you've tampered, you've profiled, and still, you think I'm the threat? His voice wasn't angry. It was disappointed, quiet, powerful. Claire didn't reply. She simply stepped back. Javier's voice cut through the air. They're losing control. The CNBC headline changed. Stock volatility hits Horizon Star after live stream incident. Isaiah tilted his head, looked around the cabin, and said with finality, You're not losing altitude. You're losing credibility. And there's no oxygen mask for that. Claire returned to the aisle with a tight jaw and tense posture, holding a new object in her hand. Isaiah's smart glasses, sleek and custom-built, which she had confiscated from his lap without so much as a word. Unauthorized electronic equipment, she said with forced authority. You're not permitted to use recording or scanning devices during boarding. She waved the glasses like a weapon, turning toward Richard. We have a policy violation. Isaiah's brows lifted, but his voice remained even. Those are assistive smart lenses. They don't record. They're mine. And your handbook doesn't prohibit them. Claire didn't answer. She dropped the glasses into a plastic tray and handed them off to a junior attendant like evidence. Then she looked directly at Isaiah and said, You're no tech titan here. You're a disruptive passenger. Passengers murmured. Someone in 7A said aloud, This doesn't feel right. Javier Morales, still broadcasting, whispered to his growing audience. They just took his glasses. I've never seen anything like this. Meanwhile, Victor Crane stood and began pacing the aisle dramatically. He held up a sheet of paper, another fake document. Here's my voucher for seat 6A, he shouted. Mine, not his. This guy's pretending. The page fluttered, completely unverified. Yet Claire said nothing. She didn't stop him. Instead, she moved to the intercom and muttered, Request police presence at gate 17. Possible passenger interference. Ethan, from his corner terminal, tapped out a few notes in the system. Code 72A. Passenger misconduct. Under that label. Isaiah was now being flagged in the airline's internal database. Security protocol active, Ethan whispered to himself. Nervously glancing toward the cabin, Javier's stream crossed 18,000 viewers. A comment pinned to the top read, They're trying to disappear a billionaire in plain sight. Back in seat 5C. Aisha Patel tapped her tablet again. They're manipulating his profile. Isaiah, she whispered. I've confirmed it. They've locked your manifest access. Isaiah didn't respond immediately. Instead, he leaned back into the deactivated seat, the recline feature still frozen, the lights above him still dim. His posture remained open, centered. Then, without a word, he reached into his jacket and handed Aisha a secure chip, wafer-thin, encrypted, containing full acquisition credentials. Prep the final sequence, he said. Let them choke on the silence. Claire, as if on cue, stepped back to him and snapped. You're being detained until authorities arrive. You're officially under passenger investigation. Her voice carried. It was meant to. Victor laughed. Told you. He's not who he says he is. Rich? Right. That suit's probably rented. Isaiah turned, slowly, calmly. Mock what you don't understand. But when your ignorance costs you something you value, remember this moment. Victor scoffed, but the laughter from the back rows had stopped. Passengers watched, phones in hand, cameras glowing. Then, like clockwork, airport police appeared at the front of the cabin. 2 officers. One already had a hand near his belt. Claire waved them forward. That's him, she said. Seat 6A, refused orders, tampered with tech, possibly stole property. Her words came fast, practiced, as if this were something she'd said before. Aisha stood. Officers, before you approach my client, you should know he's the principal shareholder in the process of acquiring this airline. His legal identity and actions are fully verified. The taller officer paused. Acquiring? Javier, now filming the police, added. CNN's watching. CNBC's on screen. You make one wrong move here, And this goes global. The second officer looked around the cabin, nervous, calculating. What's the nature of the dispute? He asked. Corporate, Aisha replied. And corrupt, all documented. Claire stepped in again. Don't listen to her. He's disrupting a federal flight. Javier turned his screen to the officers. Here, full live stream. Judge for yourself. Isaiah remained seated, not even blinking. If you put your hands on me, he said slowly, you'll be remembered forever, but not in the way you want. The officers hesitated, backed away. One reached for his radio. Stand by on removal, he muttered. Checking manifest with tower control. Claire's face reddened. Why are you hesitating? She demanded. Do your job. The taller officer looked at Isaiah. Sir, do you have any identification or documentation to support your claim? Aisha replied. Yes, and so does the Federal Aviation Board. Check their live ticker. The CEO identity is public. A brief silence. Then a cabin screen flickered. CNN's feed had cut in. A Chiron rolled beneath the anchor's voice. Breaking! Quantum Core CEO accused of profiling incident on Horizon Star flight. Acquisition rumors swirl. Richard staggered a step backward. This can't be happening, he muttered. Ethan slammed his laptop shut. Too late. The screen in front of passengers now showed Isaiah's full profile. Dr. Isaiah Grant, Quantum Core Solutions. Net worth, $3 billion. Gasps rippled through the rows. Javier's stream exploded. There it is! People! Proof! He's the owner in waiting! Claire's face cracked. For the first time, she looked unsure. Then, anger. She lunged for the intercom again. He's manipulating systems! He's lying! But no one moved. No one backed her. Isaiah looked up, his voice quiet but final. You've profiled me, lied about me, tried to eject me, but here I sit, untouched, watched, documented, and when I rise, this airline won't belong to you anymore. A passenger in 7C said under their breath. This feels like justice. Aisha leaned closer to Isaiah. Do we send the final confirmation? He nodded. Submit it. And in that moment, before anything more could be said, a quiet message appeared on Aisha's screen. Grant Ventures acquisition confirmation filed, time-stamped, acknowledged. Isaiah tapped his watch once more. Now, let them explain this to their board. The cabin wasn't silent. It was holding its breath. Claire stepped back into the aisle like a woman cornered, but still pretending she had control. Her voice cut through the air as she pointed to the airport police now hovering near the cockpit bulkhead. I'm requesting immediate detention of the passenger in 6A. He has disrupted crew operations, failed to comply with federal flight directives, and interfered with secured airline property. Her words rang louder than the cabin noise, designed to trigger fear. Some passengers flinched, others pulled out their phones again, but Isaiah didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He simply turned his head slowly toward the officers, his voice low, firm. Gentlemen, I advise you to check with your station commander before you follow through. A wrongful detainment of a verified federal shareholder in the midst of a corporate acquisition? That'll reach federal court before your shift ends. One of the officers hesitated. The other tapped his radio and stepped into the galley. Command, this is Gate 17. We have a situation involving Horizon Star manifest conflict and a high-profile individual. Requesting confirmation on passenger ID. While they waited, Claire stood her ground, tapping angrily at her device. Behind her, Ethan Pierce slouched in the corner, staring at his screen. Isaiah's profile still marked pending verification. But now, with red alerts, he hadn't placed himself. A sudden chill ran down his spine. Meanwhile, Victor Crane, still standing near seat 6B, growled. I don't care who you think you are. You're not flying on this plane. Isaiah didn't even look at him. I already own the airspace you're trying to fill, he said. You just haven't realized it yet. In 5C, Aisha Patel received a ping on her tablet. She opened it slowly, then turned to Isaiah with a restrained smile. Acquisition confirmation just hit SEC notice boards. The board has full visibility. CNN is running a segment now. Nadia says stock is diving. Horizon Star's valuation dropped 12 points since this flight went viral. Javier Morales, still live streaming from 3 rows back, panned his phone toward the cabin screens just as the CNBC feed shifted. Breaking. Quantum Core CEO in cabin confrontation, airline share price plunges, merger stake revealed. The cabin, already quiet, felt like a pressurized chamber. The hum of the engines was now drowned beneath the tension. Isaiah glanced over at Aisha, then lifted his arm and turned his smartwatch slightly, so the officer returning from the galley could see it. Call your tower. They'll confirm the bid. The officer stepped back. We received a ping from Aviation Command. He's verified, registered with FAA as a controlling investor. Claire's mouth fell open. He forged that. You don't understand. He's manipulating us. Aisha stood calmly. No, Claire. What you're experiencing is accountability. Isaiah tapped again, and the cabin monitor ahead of row 6 flickered to a clean, stark white screen with a single notification. Grant Ventures Holding confirmed. 56% Horizon Star shares acquired. Status completed. The words froze the aisle. Richard Vaughn, who had been standing silently near the lavatory, staggered forward, face pale. This isn't real. This isn't possible. I just spoke with the regional office an hour ago. And while you were sleeping at the wheel, Isaiah said, voice unshaken. Your airline changed hands. Ethan, now sweating, attempted to close the system on his console, but Aisha's tablet pinged again. She turned toward the crew, her tone sharper now. One last thing. Internal review logs confirm that Ethan Pierce attempted to override the system to have Dr. Grant permanently flagged as a banned traveler. That command was blocked. We've documented it, Claire gasped. That's not true. It's all here, Aisha replied, raising her screen. Ethan, would you like to deny it while we're broadcasting live? Javier turned his camera toward the crew. Over 300,000 viewers, he said. Keep talking. At that moment, the final twist hit. Isaiah turned to the officers. You've heard enough. You've seen enough. I have no intention of deboarding, and no lawful cause has been provided. Do your protocols allow you to detain someone based on lies? The taller officer gave a slow shake of his head. You're clear. Sir, we'll be filing a report of our own, Victor snarled. This is a joke. But even passengers in the front rows were beginning to turn toward him, scowling, whispering. A child 2 rows up asked her mother. Why were they mean to that man? The mother whispered. Because they thought they could get away with it. Aisha pressed one more command on her screen. Final transmission sent to the board. Legal grounds for internal discipline are being registered. Claire, Richard, Ethan, consider this your final notice. Claire's face flushed with fury. You don't get to decide who gets fired. I don't, Isaiah replied. But the person who owns your airline does. Then he turned toward the cabin, speaking not with force, but with clarity. I didn't come here to be an example. But if this is what it takes to expose the pattern, then let it be known. Racism doesn't ride in silence anymore. The cabin burst into stunned silence. Even the police stepped back. Outside the aircraft, the tarmac bathed in golden light. But inside, the truth was brighter than anything that filtered through the windows. Isaiah rose slowly from seat 6A, his hands calm at his sides, his stance deliberate, as if the gravity of the moment required silence before speech. The cabin was still, Passengers holding phones like lanterns, eyes wide not just with shock, but with the dawning realization that this wasn't a disruption. It was a reckoning. Claire Donovan stood frozen a few feet away, tablet clutched in both hands like a life raft. Richard Vaughn lingered behind her near the galley, mouth slightly open, looking like a man watching his career dissolve in real time. Ethan Pierce sat stiffly near the system terminal, eyes darting, one finger hovering over a screen he no longer had the authority to control. Isaiah met each of their gazes in turn, then spoke, not loud, not triumphant, but with quiet certainty that carried through the cabin. "My name is Dr. Isaiah Grant. I am the founder and CEO of Quantum Core Solutions. And as of 9 minutes ago, I became the majority shareholder and effective owner of Horizon Star Airlines through Grant Ventures." Gasps rippled through the cabin like turbulence. Claire laughed. Too high. Too fast. "You're lying. That's not. This isn't how anything works." But before she could finish, Aisha Patel stood from seat 5C, tablet in hand. "The acquisition has cleared regulatory review. The board was notified and confirmed 5 minutes ago. The FAA has been updated. The ownership ledger reflects Dr. Grant's controlling interest. This aircraft, this crew, and this company now fall under his legal oversight." Javier Morales turned his live stream directly to Isaiah. "You heard that. Folks, the man they tried to drag out of first class just bought the airline. History is being made while we watch." Victor Crane's face contorted with rage. "You're bluffing. You think some shares give you the right to humiliate people." Isaiah turned toward him. "No. Victor, your own behavior did that. I'm just here to make sure it stops happening to anyone else." Then he faced Claire. "You profiled me, lied to your superiors, allowed a passenger to physically harass me, and when that wasn't enough, you tried to erase my name from your records." Claire's jaw clenched. "I followed procedure." Isaiah nodded once. "Then you should have no trouble understanding this one. Claire Donovan, you are hereby terminated from your position at Horizon Star Airlines, effective immediately. Please step aside and relinquish all equipment." Claire stood frozen. "You can't." "I just did," Isaiah said, his tone calm but unflinching. He turned to Richard. "As Chief of Cabin Operations, you enabled this, you supported it, and you ignored every escalation warning." Richard stammered. "I didn't mean." "Intent doesn't erase impact." Isaiah cut in. "You're dismissed as well." Aisha extended a folder. "Documentation is prepared. Legal signatures are time-stamped and recorded." Then Isaiah addressed Ethan, still seated, still staring at the screen like it might offer an escape. "You tampered with internal systems to flag me as banned. That breach alone violates at least 3 FAA compliance protocols. But worse, you did it with intent," Ethan whispered. "I was following orders." Isaiah shook his head. "No, you were hiding behind them. You're relieved of all duties and barred from any affiliated aviation systems effective immediately." A murmur rose across the cabin, low but growing. Passengers began clapping, slow at first, scattered, then building. Not everyone joined in, but no one objected. Claire turned toward the cockpit. "This is insane. Someone stop him." But the pilot remained inside, silent, likely watching the stream unfold just like the rest of the world. Victor tried to argue. "He forged this. He set this up," Aisha responded coolly. "The SEC doesn't forge documents. Neither does the FAA. Javier's voice rose over the applause. "This is accountability in real time. People—" And then Isaiah stepped forward, just enough to be fully seen by every camera, every crew member, and every passenger who had watched the story twist and collapse in front of them. "This wasn't just about me," he said. "It was about every person who's ever been told they didn't belong, who was made to feel small for no reason but bias wrapped in protocol. I'm not just changing this airline. I'm changing how this industry sees the people who pay for it. Then Aisha's tablet buzzed again. Dr. Grant, she said, a review of Horizon Star's HR log shows 15 formal bias complaints against Claire Donovan in the past 2 years, all suppressed by Richard Vaughn at the regional level. Claire turned pale. That's not true. Aisha turned the tablet toward her. We have the timestamps. And now, the entire board does too. Isaiah didn't even blink. It's over. CNN broke in again on the cabin screen. The headline scrolled beneath live footage. Black CEO acquires airline mid-flight after public profiling. Executives fired on board. Javier's stream passed 600,000 live viewers. In one frame, Claire's silhouette slumped against the wall. In another, Victor shielded his face. And in the center stood Isaiah Grant, not gloating, not vengeful, but resolute, dignified, and unmoved. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow still cut through the cabin. Your system tried to erase me, so I rewrote it. The transition happened quietly, without fanfare, but with the weight of history behind it. Isaiah sat calmly in seat 6A, now undisputed. As Aisha tapped a final command into her tablet, the cabin screen flickered again, this time displaying a new logo, Unity Air. The colors were softer, the font cleaner, and beneath it appeared a message, Welcome to a new era of accountability. Gasps spread through the rows. Passengers leaned forward. One child whispered, Did the airline just change names? And Isaiah, without standing, simply nodded. As of this moment, Horizon Star is no longer in operation. Unity Air is live. Aisha's screen confirmed the rebranding protocols. FAA re-registration filed, corporate site redirected, social handles secured. She looked to Isaiah. We've activated the Horizon Equity Program, diversity training, quarterly equity audits, passenger protection alerts, all embedded. Equity Pulse is running its first scan now, Isaiah replied. We don't just punish behavior. We redesign the system that enabled it. Behind them, Javier Morales caught every second. Viewers, you're seeing it. A corporate reformation happening in real time. A black CEO didn't just survive bias. He used it to reconstruct aviation from the inside. In the galley, several junior crew members whispered to one another, clearly shaken. One of them, a young black attendant, covered her mouth with her hand, tears pooling in her eyes. No one's ever done this before. She whispered. Aisha turned toward her and nodded gently. You're seen. You're safe now. Meanwhile, Richard Vaughn, still reeling from his dismissal, spoke into a private headset he'd hoped no one noticed. We'll take legal action. This isn't final. But his words didn't matter anymore. Aisha had already pulled the internal reports. There's more, she whispered to Isaiah. Ethan wasn't working alone. I've uncovered communications with 6 mid-level managers. They plan to sabotage the Horizon Equity Program by falsifying compliance reports. They labeled it Operation Buffer. It was set to start next quarter. Isaiah's expression tightened. Then we shut it down before it takes a single breath. Aisha's fingers flew across her screen, deploying an immediate lockdown on all internal audit pathways. Within seconds, Unity Air's system registered the security override. Every branch office linked to the flagged managers was locked out. Javier turned his camera toward the front. You're witnessing the unraveling of institutional bias, one policy at a time. Isaiah stood briefly, not to grandstand, but to make eye contact with the passengers who had watched him be profiled, doubted, and diminished. I didn't ask for this moment, he said softly, but I'm not walking away from it. We're going to build something better. Together. Not performative, not reactionary, but structural, permanent. Applause broke out across the first-class cabin. It wasn't loud, It didn't need to be. The respect carried weight far deeper than volume. Aisha nodded. Equity Pulse is now public-facing. All scans and results will be released quarterly on Unity Air's site, and the FAA just issued a statement of support for your transparency initiative. Isaiah's watch buzzed again. Nadia's update scrolled across his screen. Unity Air stock recovering. Media response overwhelmingly positive. Grant Ventures up 3% in the hour. Isaiah exhaled, not with relief, but resolve. This wasn't about money. It was about correction. Then, in a final twist, Aisha opened a secured folder and pressed play on a short recording. Claire Donovan's voice played through the tablet speaker. We don't need to train those people. They're just trying to game the system. The date stamp read 6 weeks prior. The recording had been buried in a training server, recovered during the Equity Pulse scan. Javier looked stunned. She said that? Aisha nodded. And she wasn't alone, Ethan replied. They don't belong in first class anyway. The cabin chilled for a moment. Isaiah looked at Aisha. Upload it to the Equity Audit Archive. Let people see how deeply the rot went. The young black attendant near the galley wiped her eyes again. I just wanted to work somewhere that saw me, she whispered. Isaiah looked at her with steady compassion. Now you do. Unity Air's rebranding wasn't just cosmetic. Within minutes, its mission statement, training policies, and equity monitoring framework were live online. Former passengers began tagging the new brand in posts of support. Hashtags shifted from rage to resolve, hashtag Unity Air, hashtag flight to fairness, hashtag Equity Eyes Air. And back in seat 6A. Isaiah leaned back, not in triumph, but in purpose. The storm had passed, but the real work was just beginning. The final moments unfolded not with fire or spectacle, but with clarity, the kind that lingers long after the engines cool and the crowd quiets. Isaiah sat once more in 6A, not because it had been given, but because he'd claimed it on behalf of everyone who'd ever been told to move, to wait, to explain themselves. Around him, the cabin had changed, not its walls or lighting, but its spirit. The weight of silence was no longer fear. It was reflection. Richard Vaughn, Ethan Pierce, and Claire Donovan had been escorted off the plane not in cuffs, but in consequence, the FAA had initiated formal investigations into procedural violations and internal sabotage. Javier Morales, still live, addressed the camera as the police walked past. You're watching the real-time fall of a culture that thought silence could cover discrimination. But silence just gave it a stage. Victor Crane's private equity firm, already under public scrutiny, now faced investor pressure and an internal audit after his remarks were replayed on CNN. Horizon Star's original leadership began distancing themselves online, but it was too late. Aisha, ever calm, read aloud a final message from the Airline's board. All prior contracts associated with discriminatory actors are suspended pending review. Dr. Grant's oversight is hereby affirmed. Isaiah didn't speak at first. He simply nodded, tapped his smartwatch once, and turned to the young black attendant still standing at the galley's edge. What's your name? She answered softly. Danielle. Danielle, he said. You're going to help train the next generation of flight leaders. Unity Air starts with people like you. Her hands trembled as she smiled. Aisha leaned in from 5C, pulling up a draft press release. We've finalized the Unity Fund Charter, its first initiative, providing grants for aviation scholarships and safe travel programs for underrepresented youth. Funded personally by Grant Ventures. Ready to launch? Isaiah nodded once. Let's build more runways for people like Danielle. Javier's stream caught every word, the viewer count holding steady at over 500,000. And then, just as the cabin began to settle. A final twist emerged, not from tech, but testimony. An older white man, mid-70s, quietly stood from seat 2B. He adjusted his tie, cleared his throat, and stepped forward. "I'm Captain Robert Ames," he said. "Retired. 32 years with Horizon Star." His voice wasn't loud, but every row turned. "I've watched this company change, and I've watched people like Claire get promoted because complaints were buried. I filed 2 bias reports against her myself. They disappeared. No one ever followed up." A hush fell. Aisha blinked. "That wasn't in the logs." "Because Richard deleted them," the captain said. "He told me directly it would make things cleaner for corporate. I was tired. I didn't fight it." Isaiah stood again. "But you're speaking now. Because it matters now." Captain Ames replied. "Because someone made it matter." Javier stepped closer. "You heard it. A retired captain just confirmed that Horizon Star buried complaints. That the problem wasn't just people, it was protection." CNN ran the story within minutes. The confession was clipped, looped, and reposted across platforms. Unity Air's internal team confirmed 6 other similar reports, never logged, never addressed. Aisha uploaded the testimony to Unity Air's transparency portal under the title Buried Voices, Now Heard. Danielle placed a hand over her heart. Isaiah turned to the camera nearest him. "Bias survives when systems make it easy. We're making it harder, day by day, report by report." The Unity Fund launched with $1 million seeded from Isaiah's personal equity. Within hours, it had over 4,000 contributors and a list of nominations from underserved schools and regional programs. Its first award? A scholarship in Danielle's name. For a student who'd never flown but dreamed of the sky. Isaiah didn't make speeches. He didn't hold press conferences. He let the system speak, updated equity metrics, board meeting schedules, and public audit trackers, all live within 48 hours. Aisha closed her tablet with a soft smile. "This isn't just a win, it's a blueprint." Isaiah nodded slowly. "It's our takeoff." The cabin grew quiet again. Not empty, but full of something different. Respect, purpose, redemption. CNN aired a segment called "The Flight That Changed Everything." Passengers who once stared in silence now posted videos of encouragement, tagging #UnityAirLegacy. Even employees from other airlines began commenting, asking for policy templates and audit tools. Isaiah watched it all unfold, not with pride, but with certainty. This, he knew, was what change looked like, not loud, but lasting, not theatrical, but true. And as the cabin lights dimmed in preparation for takeoff, Javier narrated the final words of his stream. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He didn't even raise his voice. But today, Dr. Isaiah Grant didn't just board a plane. He changed the direction of flight itself. Before you go, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If Isaiah's story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share. Let's make justice travel farther.